record button now, and there we go. Yes. So let's move it on to obstacles, right? What are some of those obstacles that you're going through when it comes to your mindset? And I think this right here, procrastination, is something huge that we're speaking about. Like, if I think about it, we're coming towards the end of the year, and conversations that I've been having with people is they have these big dreams, these big goals, and they're waiting for everything to be perfect, have all of their ducks in a row in order to make something happen. And it's like nothing will ever be perfect. You have to focus on making progress. Here we are doing a first webinar together, and a few years from now, we'll look back at this and we'll be like, yo, peace, we could have done this, we could have done that. But we're making the progress, because this right here is what makes you get towards your goals. And for example, Amy, your definition of perfectionism is completely different from mine. So it's not really an objective word. It's more of a subjective thing. So keep that in mind and ask yourself, what is it that I need to let go of right now that is not serving me anymore? Oh my gosh, this is huge. I think especially for women, we feel like we need to suffer in experiences, in positions that we don't enjoy, like we need to be martyrs. But we forget to come back to ourselves and ask ourselves, hey, is this making me happy? Is this serving my bigger purpose? Is this moving me towards my longer term goals? And you got to get real with that. And yes, it's not going to make some people happy. That's okay. Because let me tell you, no matter what it is you do, who you are, someone's always going to be unhappy. And the true definition of a leader is someone that challenges the status quo. Someone that says, I'm not happy with how things are. I'm willing to change things. And with that comes criticism, but that's what it takes to be a leader. So I want you to remember that. And so, I'd like to move it on to a question and answer session, but Peace, is there anything that you'd like to say with regards to what I just said now?
No, you covered it very beautifully. And, something that's so key, what you're saying is us being stuck in a situation where we're not happy at. And something that, you and I have both learned is from Renee Brown. And she speaks about being brave. You're going to disappoint a lot of people, right? And it requires you to be brave. And sometimes it requires for you to say no. And because of us trying to be kind and trying to fulfill other people's dreams and other people's destinations and so forth, we do it at our own expense and we end up not being happy. And then we have all these obstacles that we've created ourselves that we've accepted in our lives as well. So it's kind of important for us to take a step back and say, what am I not happy with? And from there, how do I then find the courage to speak to the people I need to speak to change my life? Where I can stop procrastinating, where I can start moving forward. Because there's a lot of things that's holding me back to reach my destination, and that's impacting my happiness as well.
Right. And I think we underplay that. I think we really do underplay that whole aspect of your mental health and what is it that makes me happy. Yes, it's great to put other people's needs first, but at the end of the day, if you're going to want to help people and you have a passion for making a difference in people's lives, you need to start with yourself in order to really have a huge impact. So keep that in mind. And now I want to move it on to motivation versus discipline. Now, this right here is Peace's forte. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not really sure, but maybe that is. But we're going to move it on to motivation versus discipline.
Sorry,
Yes.
you mean before you do, can I please ask something? I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome, and I was wondering if the least toxic way to deal with imposter syndrome, before we continue, because I feel like I might take you guys backwards if I ask further into the conversation.
Yeah, thank you for that great question. And I think both Peace and I will answer that. That is huge. And it's so funny that you brought that up because I was actually thinking of doing a webinar specifically formulated for imposter syndrome. And I know, especially also, like, you know, with being a woman, it's something that we feel like we don't really deserve success. But why is that so? And I think it's actually asking yourself, why do you feel like you don't deserve success? Why do you feel like you're not good enough? And I think sometimes there are so many aspects that revolve around imposter syndrome, but I think one of them is like comparing ourselves to other people. And it comes back down to that, comparing our chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. You know, you've got to realize that where you're at right now, if you're just simply doing your best at this moment in time, that's all that should count. And that right there should give you the confidence to say, hey, I'm not too shabby. I'm actually doing well. And you know what? You might think that, you know, your message, like, for example, sometimes I think, oh, you know what? There are other people that are life coaches just like me. But at the end of the day, they're not hearing it from me in my voice. I have my own unique voice. And so do you, Gugu. You also have your own unique voice and how you're going to bring, you know, help people. And I know that you were studying psychology, right? I think that was one of the things that you studied and you really enjoyed it.
Law.
Yeah. What's that?
Law. I'm studying law.
Law. I remember, I think you studied psychology before and then
Oh yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So keep that in mind. And I would love Peace to jump onto that question that Gugu has. That's very, very relevant question.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much, Gugu. It's again, it's ultimately looking to put your happiness first when it comes to certain things, and not comparing yourself to other people, right? I'm not saying that you are doing that, but it's looking at your. I mean, when you talk about, if we look at the beginning of the conversation, we spoke about the why, right? And for you and I, that's kind of the heart of the aspect that we're dealing with, right? When it comes to success. And then now the mindset is kind of the mind. And we'll go further down, which is the hands of how you actually do all these things and link everything together. But it's saying, what makes you happy, right? What are your values? What drives you every morning to get up in the morning? And also, when you get feedback, how do you take that feedback? And like I mentioned a bit earlier, it's very difficult. And like it's from the early stage in terms of us going to school, what happens is when you get that mark and you get 90%, the first thing you look at is the 10% that's not there, right? What's missing? And it's always like, what's missing with what we've done, right? And we forget about the aspect like, what have we done and what have we covered and how far we've come as human beings, as individuals. And the moment we start understanding that, we are work in progress, right? And no journey is going to be the same as the other individual that we're speaking to. But what we can do is we understand our shortfalls. We're able to ask for help or support in whatever aspect that we're struggling with, and just being vulnerable about that. And I think the moment we start doing that, we're able to attract the right people, right? And I'll say the right people that are aligned with our values and our core beliefs and our why as well.
Yeah, I love that. And that encapsulates it so well. I hope, Gugu, that answers your question. Yay, that's great to
Thank
hear.
you.
It's a pleasure. Amy, I know that you have a question also.
I do. I have like a two-part question. So the first one was based on Wesley, but I see he's dropped off the call right now. He's a matriculant, and he was asking, how do you deal with obstacles and moving past them and all of that stuff, especially because he's a matric. 2020 has been a lot. They've been having to like cram 3 months worth of studying into like 2 weeks or something. It's a lot, but I see he's not on the call anymore. So I'm going to go to my second one. The second one that I wanted to ask actually follows what Gugu was asking. So Gugu mentions imposter syndrome, and it's something that I've spoken in length with you, Yumi, in our own things. But like, I think one thing that I want to understand from you guys, especially with you, Peace, being Black, how do we bring the notion of imposter syndrome into the right context, because it's not the same as occupying the space in the UN buildings versus occupying a space here in South Africa. You know, I mean, the type of industry that I'm in, I'm up against like the white Afrikaner male who doesn't actually see me at all. I can come with the MBA, I can come with all my, like, everything, like I'm even more educated. How do we get to a point where we transcend those lines and actually get to be seen the way we are? So I know it's now touching on like race relations and everything, but it is something that I believe can be learned from within, because we cannot expect the government to always give. Here you guys go, here you know, type thing. So I just wanted to find out and pick your brains on that part, because for me, that's where I'm headed. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to go into success coaching and like life coaching for people of color specifically. I want to help the young Black child, the young Black girl child, to go and be so great in that boardroom, even though she doesn't look like anyone else that's sitting around the boardroom. Like, I mean, we got this thing. There's Black girl magic here. There's Black magic. So like, how do we transcend that imposter syndrome on such a deep level? Because it can't be as easy as I must believe in myself, because I believed in myself enough to go and sign up and do my MBA at GSB, at UCT, and all of that stuff. You know, I've got all the things that I was already believing myself, but now I'm sitting in a boardroom and there's a 65-year-old man who's supposed to be, you know, saying bye, but he's still sitting there, and I must still report into him. How do I make sure that I keep myself together and obviously deliver my great and my wealth of knowledge, and, you know, just navigate that imposter syndrome?
Wow, Amy, that is a great question, and thank you so much for the context. And I can kind of relate to what you're sharing. So I'll answer with a bit of a story and also answer directly as well. So I also, you know, before I worked with, so I've got a business in the US now, right, that I work with my partner in. And I started a sales and marketing business after leaving the corporate world, right? And I said to myself, you know, I feel like I can start spreading my wings and flying. And one of the biggest issues that I faced was, you know, when I walked into the boardroom, they saw the color of my skin. And I walk in, and it's like, okay, cool. So you are not competent until you prove me otherwise. But if someone else comes in, you're competent until you prove me otherwise, right? And that was a big issue and challenge for me. And the thing is, you know what? You get to a point where you say, you know what? It's not going to limit you, right? It's the reality of the country because of the history and so forth, right? Not to say like it's right, but then, you know, something that I've said to myself is, you know, I know who I am, right? I know the results that I can deliver. And I know when it comes to certain things, I can deliver my best. I can be the best. And I just need that one shot and be very consistent and disciplined at delivering those results. And, you know, ways of dealing with that is just producing results all the time when it comes to that, you know, answering with the results. And for me, like, you know, having the whole conversation back and forth, like the color of skins, and it becomes a bit difficult and kind of tiring at the same time. And it's a conversation that must be had, but I think you need to find the right platform for it, right? And, you know, like you're saying, in the space that you are in, and you're already producing such great results. Now it's upon you and I, right, that have experienced all of this, right? And we're in these positions. Now what we then do is, you know, we're pushing the elevator down and getting the people that are out there that are facing the same thing. Now what we're doing is we're transferring that knowledge and saying to them, well, what we're going to do is, we know you're going to be faced with this problem. And the way for you to deal with it is X, Y, Z, right? Or we might not have the perfect formula, but we might have encountered some of the problems that they've encountered. So at least when they go in, it's not a shock to them, or it doesn't break their morale, or it breaks the way that they want to achieve their dreams. And they actually say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. So we want to build them up to a point where they say, you know what, it's happened. It's not going to stop me. I'm going to knock on the next door.
Wow.
I'm just going to add something there. So the context of this webinar is how to achieve success without burnout. And to follow on your personal story, I'll add just a little bit, a hint of mine, in that in as much as I work really hard as to what I do, you end up finding yourself fighting two different types of battle. So burnout is almost inevitable.
Yeah.
Because you are literally fighting two battles at the same time. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's I mean, it's a topic for another day, and we can totally take it offline. But yeah, I just wanted to pick your brain about that one.
So the interesting part on that, Amy, right, is so think about it from this perspective: on not fighting, but looking at the people that are about to fight, and how do you train them, and start building an army of fighters, and
Ooh,
not making the fight just yours.
that's powerful. Wow.
That's profound.
So profound. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Amy, thank you so much for bringing up that question, and Peace for answering it so beautifully. And that is such a huge topic. You're actually like giving me some ideas. And, you know, I'm really into like these Instagram lives and interviewing people. And this could be like even like a three-way sort of conversation, like, you know, on like a separate sort of webinar, but very powerful. That really shed some light on me too. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. So we have a few minutes left, Peace, on this section here. We're running a little bit over time, but that's okay because the one section is not so long. But when it comes to motivation versus discipline, I'd love for you to speak on this one, as you're very knowledgeable about this specific topic.
So I'll jump into this one, and for me, it goes back to, I think Nesh mentioned a bit earlier, how do you kind of keep on track? And one of the things is, when we have all of these ideas that we want to start doing, or these business ventures, or just in life in general, right? You sign up for a gym membership. Now I'm motivated. I get my gym bottle. I sign up on Herbalife, do my subscription, and all those kind of things. And, you find yourself maybe 2 months down the line, maybe you have a bit of flu or you're sick and you don't go to gym anymore. And now it becomes 6 months and you have a contract that's just sitting there. That motivation is gone, right? And what really gets you the result, and this is, we can debate this, right? And what really gets you the result is the discipline to execute on that. And what's important is, and I'm not saying like you don't need motivation. Motivation you do need, but I believe discipline eats motivation for breakfast, right? And for me, it's, the discipline gets you the result, and the motivation is how you feel about achieving the desired result. And that's very, very important. If you look at the super successful people, the difference that they have in terms of the people that are not so successful is, even if they don't feel like doing something, they do it because they know, like, if they don't do that, it's going to impact other stuff that they have to do as well. I can use a simple analogy about, how many of us every night, when you about to sleep, do we brush our teeth? Take it a step further. How many of us actually take floss and we floss? Take it a step further, right? Even deeper. How many of us actually even use the mouthwash? So we all know the benefits of it, right? And that should motivate you enough. But if you're not disciplined enough to do that every single day, you're not going to enjoy that result. So the motivation is not strong enough for you to actually achieve success. So the discipline is so important. And you need to actually allocate certain routines and do certain things within your life to make sure that you are well disciplined. And when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And even if you don't feel like doing it, you do it. And motivation doesn't get things done. Discipline gets things done. Thank you, Yimna.
Yes, so powerful, Peace. And I really like what you said there, like when it comes to, discipline eating motivation. When you spoke about it that way, I never thought of motivation and discipline and how those two go together and the relationship between those two things. And, just to add something short onto that before we move it on to the next section is, when it comes to motivation, sometimes we think that motivation is going to come from the unicorn lands or something. It's just going to pop out of nowhere, right? But actually, taking action taking action is what creates that motivation, because you feel like when you take action, you're making progress. And that sense of accomplishment, that sense of progress that you feel is what really creates the action. And that action creates that discipline too. That's also a great way of looking at it in that way too. Yeah. And I think like, yeah, let's move on to lights, camera, action. So this one right here is like the bulk that we spoke about of what's going to happen. And then reflect and rest is something that we'll just end off with, which won't take so long. And then we can answer some questions. But lights, camera, action is now we're going to dive into, you know, how is it that we can work smarter versus harder? How is it that we can set goals with soul? And how is it that we can create an action plan that specifically works for you? Because it's not a one size shoe fits all sort of thing, you know? So I want to start it off with a statistic. Now, this was pretty scary when I saw this, right? Did you know that according to research, more than 50% of people say that they are overwhelmed and exhausted? And only 8% of people who set their New Year's resolutions actually go ahead and achieve their goals. That is a scary statistic.
It is a human. And if I can just jump in on that, right? Just linking
Yeah.
it back to the motivation and the discipline. And the only reason why it's 8%, it's not motivation, it's discipline, right? Because in the beginning, we start off with being motivated, like we have this long list of goals, but the discipline is lacking.
Yeah. Oh my word. That is so clever that you brought that up. And that's exactly what happens. Amy, I think you had
Yeah, I
something
want
to
to
say
say something. Sorry, I'm just going to add like a few things that I've thought about, especially when it comes to the motivation before we move into the section, the motivation and discipline. Somebody, I'm not sure who it was earlier, mentioned the mental health part and like how do you show who you are on social media, but still keep your mental health in check and everything. So like, and you know, you said your whole story, Yumi, about the fact that you couldn't even order pizza.
that.
Yes, I've heard that story. She couldn't even order pizza over the phone. It's a lot. So we've come a long way. But like, I'm also like a big advocate for like anxiety. So with anxiety, the most important thing is not motivation to get up in the morning. It's actually discipline. It really is. It's like you need to wake up in the morning, you need to make your bed. They like certain things that get you out of that space. So if you consistently do them, 6 a.m., I need to wake up. 6:10, I need to make my bed. 6:15, I need to be in the shower. You just keep doing that. And the moment you get past that discipline and become so ingrained in yourself, then the motivation then is almost like a byproduct of it.
Right. Yes. That's so true what you said there, Amy, and so beautifully put. And I know that anxiety for me is something that I go through a lot of. And it's the main thing as to what led me to become a coach is because of that dark place of feeling really depressed, couldn't get up in the morning. But like you said, I still got up, still did the things that needed to be done in order to go and you know, overcome this. And I think also to go hand in hand with that is to also seek help from a therapist or a life coach to get you through that anxiety, to also start with your mind and how is it that you can like rewire the way that your mind thinks too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Amy, for that. Yeah. So let's move it on to working smarter versus working harder. So let me just put my little spotlight video over here. So there are two things that Peace and I would like to speak about when it comes to working smarter versus working harder. Number one is Stephen Covey's time management quadrants. And then I'm going to speak about the Pomodoro method. So I think, Peace, you can start it off with Stephen Covey's time matrix. Yes.
Yeah.
So here it is. This is what it looks like, just so you know. And this is also in the workbook too. If you, I think I'll insert the workbook again just in case you've joined a little bit later.
Yeah. So if I can just kind of give a breakdown of, I mean, I'm not going to read what's on there, but I'll kind of give a bit of context. And you know, the way that Stephen Covey has kind of defined the time management matrix, it's so crucial, and it makes life so much easier when you have to plan and just work processes and systems into your life, especially when we talk about discipline and motivation. And the first quadrant, he talks about, this is the area where you have things that are important and urgent. And these are basically all the problems and the crisis that you have to deal with. Like if you don't deal with this right now, it's going to impact you either now or tomorrow. So these are things that you need to kind of make sure that you're focusing on, but you don't want to live in that, right? Because no one wants to live in I'm always solving problems and everything is always urgent, because then that's when you get burnout. And that's what you're trying to avoid. And that's why we're having the topic of, how to achieve success without burnout. And then the second quadrant talks about effectiveness. And what he says about this one is he says, these are kind of the important tasks, right, that you need to plan within your life, but they're not urgent. And what that means is like, these are your goals, your mission, your self-development, coaching and growing and building relationships. And these are things that you want to be focused on and the space that you want to be at. Because what that does then is you become more effective in your space and what you're doing in terms of your business or your life. And the third quadrant, he talks about the things that are kind of not urgent, right, or not important, but urgent to others. And what that actually means is, I'm sure all of us have been into meetings where you're invited to a meeting and you feel like there's no real agenda to this meeting. And the meeting is just going on and on and on, and we're just all over the place, right? And that meeting is urgent to that other person, but for you, it's not, right? And it's kind of a distraction. It's just kind of time wasting because there's no real structure behind it. So you just got to be cautious of that when you do operate in that space. Just making sure that if there are any team meetings and so forth, right, that there's proper agendas planned for those kind of conversations. And then the fourth one, and I'm guilty of this as well, with this social media thing and whatnot, and watching TV. I love watching cartoons for some odd reason. So, this is a space where it's, things are not important and they're not urgent, right? And it's things like just watching mindless TV. And, for me, when I watch cartoons, it's more of kind of winding down and just saying to myself, I've worked really hard, and it kind of take my mind off things, And it's not to say like it's really bad for you to kind of be in that space, but it's just you need to be very cautious of it. Right? Where you're going on social media and you're watching different Instagram videos, and it's just like not meaningful. It's just a waste of time, right? So you got to be cautious of that. And what he's saying is, if you focus on the second quadrant, which is you being effective, that's where you actually get the most done. And no one wants to live in a space where they're just solving problems all the time. Because when it comes to the quadrant of the second one, where you become effective, that's you achieving your goals and your success that you need in your life without being burnt out. Thank you, Yumna.
Thank you so much, Peace, for that. That was amazing. And I think like if you guys could, have a look at this time management quadrant and actually draw it out on a piece of paper and go through your daily activities and track and put them in there, each activity that you do, you'll actually, feel very enlightened because you'll see things that you never saw before. And I suggest even doing time blocks of, a time block for quadrant 1, time block for quadrant 2. So all of those activities that you're doing that fit into quadrant 1, you time block that. And then you'll actually see where your time is going. And you might think that, oh, yes, I'm on social media browsing Facebook. And before you know it, an hour's gone by. And you're like, how did that even happen? So keep that in mind. And I think something that I'd like to add on to, when it comes to working smarter versus working harder, is trying to find a schedule that works for you. And I think this is in another slide on the time management aspect that I'll come to in a little bit. But I would like to show you guys the Pomodoro Technique. Now, you've probably heard of this. Okay, so my face, this thing is quite big, hey? Look how it blocked my face out. So the Pomodoro Technique, I just learned 2 days ago that Pomodoro actually means tomato. I didn't know that. And you can actually buy the actual thing on Amazon, which is pretty cool. But I discovered this technique and I've tried it out, and I gotta say, it really, really does work. And it helps you with, preventing that burnout, because a lot of times we're so focused on something and we keep going and going and going, and we're trying to be efficient, but not effective. And I think the magic happens when you try to focus on how is it that I can be more effective, perhaps slowing down things a little bit to focus on maybe only a few things for the day to really boost your productivity instead of trying to fit everything into one day. So over here, as you can see, I have it here, the Pomodoro method. So this is how it works. Step number one, you create your to-do list, right? And then you decide on the individual task that needs to be done. And then step two is you set a timer for 25 minutes. Now, I would suggest not using a cell phone because there's so much distractions on there. I would recommend actually getting like a manual one, even that tomato one, the Pomodoro actual tomato. So setting the timer for 25 minutes, working on that specific task for 25 minutes, and then taking a 5-minute short break. And then you repeat that. That's one Pomodoro. That's what it's called. That's one Pomodoro. And then you repeat that Pomodoro steps 1 through 4 times. And then after the fourth Pomodoro, you take a 15 to 30-minute break. And that really enables you to really focus in on your work and not feel like you're completely drained all the time trying to focus on so many things, right? So keep this in mind. I know that this has worked for me and it's worked wonders. So I would suggest, and I think I even put it there in that book for you. Yes. So that is how to work smarter, not harder. And I think the next thing that we're going to focus on is how to set goals with soul. So this is something that I first heard about from an interview with a life coach that I really look up to. She was interviewing a woman that focuses on not the surface level of setting goals, because a lot of times we're focused on the more technical things like SMART goals, something that we've learned in school and college and business class. Yes, it's important, but what is it that's going to keep you motivated to keep going with those goals? If there's no feeling that's attached to setting goals with soul, then you're not really going to feel motivated to keep going. So I like to say, do what makes your soul shine. Do something that is making you happy. And remember, I said it goes back to letting go of some things that just don't make you happy. If it's not fulfilling your soul, you got to go. Hallelujah. You got to go. And so asking yourself, even Amy's like, yes. You got to ask yourself, why is this goal important to me? For me, success is really about freedom. For me, I want to achieve freedom. I know that it takes a lot of work right now in the beginning, but the end goal is to really have that sense of freedom. And for me, having a passive income brings me that freedom, personally for me. So define what success means to you. Remember what I said? Not Auntie Sally's definition of success, not your parents' definition of success, your definition of success. And always asking yourself, how is it that I can connect my feelings to that goal? How can I create goals that actually do fill my soul and not fill the soul of society or what you think society wants you to do, right? Keep that in mind. And I want to move it on to the head versus the heart. And Peace, you are so good at explaining this concept. So I'm going to actually move it on to here. The head versus the heart. Golden advice from Peace. Peace, over to you.
Thank you, Yumna. So this one is quite interesting. So when we set goals, we tend to set goals, we think about an idea and we don't connect with the goal emotionally. And I'll use a few examples that are quite famous. And the one is Nelson Mandela. If you think about that man spending 27 years in prison, that wasn't just like, I have an idea, I'm going to spend 27 years in prison to achieve this goal, right? He put his whole soul in that goal to say, you know what, at whatever it costs, I'm going to make sure that this goal is achieved. And if it means 27 years, I'm attaching my soul and my life towards this goal. And that's why he was able to bring so many people together and actually change not just South Africa, but the whole world, right? Even Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, he didn't say, I have an idea that one day, Black people in the streets of America will be able to roam around without feeling oppressed. He said, I have a dream, that one day, and he actually connected with the people. And at that time, there were no social media to invite people to the event or send an email and so forth. This was basically him just preaching and actually engaging with people and sharing his heart out and pouring his soul into what he wants to, what he believes is a goal. And he got almost 500,000 people to gather in one space to listen to him speak about the dream that he has for America. So it's so crucial that when you do set your goal, like Yumna mentioned, you have to attach your soul to it, because people buy into that, and not the mind, or not the heart, not the head.
Yes, I like that piece, and I like what you said. That's not the I believe in an idea. I believe in a dream.
Yeah.
Yes, and words carry power. Hey, they really do, and they carry soul within the words itself, which is so important. Thank you
Yes.
so much for that piece. That is so significant and really is. And I think the last part of this section is creating an action plan that really works for you and only you know? And I'll use an example when it comes to, let me make my face bigger. Oh, there we go. Here it is. So what is it that works for me? Now, for example, I'm a big fan of this, like your actual health itself. And that's in the last section of this thing that we're going to move on to. But I live with epilepsy. And in the mornings time is just not great for my brain. And I know there's this whole thing that goes on about, oh, wake up at 4 a.m. and all of those things. But some people's bodies just function differently. There's this thing in science called I think it's the circadian rhythms or something, whereas some people are morning people, some people are night people. I consider myself a night person. I'm most productive in the late afternoons and in the evenings. So I use that to my advantage. And I know that, the mornings, it just doesn't work for me. I used to feel very embarrassed about it, to the point where I used to care too much about what people thought of me, in terms of maybe, hey, this girl's like lazy, but I knew the time that works for me. So create that ideal schedule that works for yourself. And once again, focusing on the progress, not the perfectionism. And remember what we spoke about piece over here is that people have intentions, but are not intentional. That's so true. It's like we talk a big game, but are you actually modeling it? Are you actually doing what you said you're going to do? Or are you just busy being busy? The number one excuse people come to, and that's actually what we'll speak about in time management, is I'm so busy. But we're going to challenge that myth right now. But I want to move it to you, Peace, to speak about that working shoulder up and not shoulder down. And I think you have something else to say. I kind of sense it telepathically.
Yeah, I can jump in. So when it comes to us having intentions, there's nothing wrong with us having intentions. But I think over and above that, right, is you need to execute on those intentions. And the reason being, as the quote that I've created there, it says, you're not measured by your intentions, right? But you are measured by your actions. So your ability to execute on something that you've said, I'm going to do. That's how people perceive you. That's how people actually know you. So when you say to someone, oh, I was planning to do this, you haven't done it. But the conversation becomes different when you said, I've done X, Y, Z, as opposed to I'm planning to do X, Y, Z. And that's why it's so important. And it goes back to, again, your values, what drives you, what do those behaviors look like? So as you can see, what we've done from the beginning is we've spoken about the heart component, moved to the actual mind, and now it's like, this is the hands, and what we want to do is, we want to create this holistic perspective whereby people are coming in and they're working in terms of their lives or business. They bring in their hands, hearts, and minds to achieve their goal that they need to achieve, or the success that they want within their lives as well. And what's important as well is, this whole analogy of, let's work really hard, let's put in 18 hours a day, or let's sleep and let's work until 3 a.m. It doesn't, sometimes that is not sustainable for some people. And I have this notion, I've spoken to Yumna about a couple of times, where I want to be in a space where I'm working shoulder up and not shoulder down. And we have this thing is, if I work really hard, I'm going to be really successful and rich. Well, if you look at a construction worker, not to say I have anything against construction, they work damn hard. but they're not making the most money. Right now, you could find your space where you're saying to yourself, how do I understand all of that? And at the same time, then how do I switch up the game on my side? So I actually don't feel that burnout. Because if I'm physically working and doing something all the time and I'm not getting the reward that I want, then I will be burnt out. So how do I change the narrative and change my story when I'm executing on certain things, where I'm delivering on tasks from shoulder up and not shoulder down? Thank you, Yumna.
Thank you so much, Peace. And I love the examples that you used, and just having, working hard is not going to get you where you want to go. There's so many people that are working hard. And so that's why we like to speak about all of these these different things. And so going along with that is the whole thing of let me just put it here, time management, right? So it's not time management, it's you management. It really is. How many times do we hear the thing, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I'm so busy? That's the number one excuse that we automatically jump to. And sometimes I feel like it's the child excuse of, oh, the dog ate my homework. Where we're failing to take responsibility, and we're failing to come back to be like, hey, maybe I should be assessing myself. Where is my time actually going? When last did you actually break down your diary and see where your time is being spent? So it's you management. We all get 24 hours in a day. And I remember the one thing that stood out for me in English class is whenever the students used to come in and say, oh man, I was so busy, I didn't have the time to do my homework. He's like, no, it's not that you didn't have the time. It's that you didn't make the time. Oh, that stood with me. That was the
Yeah.
first time I heard someone say that. I was like, wow. And I never used that excuse then in school. I was very disciplined with my homework. So I didn't want to get in trouble, like the goody two shoes. But the lack of time, as Sandra Chuma says, the lack of time is not what's stopping you from taking consistent action. How you're managing and spending your time is the problem. And then going back to letting go of some things that are not serving you, just because you're trying to be nice to someone, sometimes you have to let go of things that are not serving you. So coming back to what we spoke about before and focusing on activities that are contributing towards your long-term goals. Keeping that in mind is so important. And Peace, I want you to speak about those golden hours.
I love this one. So the interesting one about the golden hours is a lot of people use the excuse, like Yumna mentioned, I don't have enough time. So all of us that have joined this call have 24 hours in a day, right? So let's say in those 24 hours in the day, you sleep for 8 hours and then you work for another 8. So you left with another 8, right? Cool. So with that 8, let's say it's a bit of traffic. It's a bit of you going to go get something to eat, answering calls here and there. Let's say it takes 4 hours. You left with another 4 hours. And those 4 hours that you left with are your golden hours. And what are you doing, right, to become the person that you want to be when it comes to you achieving your success or achieving your goals and managing yourself? Because that's when it really matters, is when you feel like you have this free time and what tasks are you focusing on? And I call those the golden hours. So I'd like for everyone on the call to challenge themselves going forward to say, when I do have a bit of free time, what am I doing? How am I managing myself to execute on some of the tasks that I need to do? And again, it goes back to the whole discipline thing. If I have 4 hours left in the day, what can I actually execute on that's going to achieve or drive me towards or move me towards the ultimate goal that I want to achieve? And failure to do so, you start finding yourself losing the motivation. You start finding yourself being burnt out. And you want to avoid that. So it's so crucial for you to understand those golden hours are so important. Even if it's meditating or doing something just to refuel and re-energize yourself, that you're able to make sure in the morning when you wake up, you're doing what you need to do and you're doing what needs to be done to achieve a success. Thanks, Yumna.
I like that. I really do. Thank you so much, Peace, for that. And it's so true what you say. Just getting down to the nitty gritty. I think it just, because it takes some work to do and to reflect and break it down, some people put it off, you know? And Sandhya over here said something so great. You know, she said, I also think the challenge is that the perception that working long hours and I'm so busy is a celebrated notion. What you are both sharing dispels that notion. We need more discussions like these. Thank you so much, Sandhya. It's like you read my mind, because just last night I was thinking of that. My next article that I want to write is why is it considered this like a badge of honor if you're suffering and you're working long hours and you're dead at the end of the day? It's like, yes, it's like celebrated, like, yes, you're burnt out. It's so strange, but people don't challenge those thoughts. And that's, I think, a great conversation that we need to definitely have in another webinar. And it goes along with, you know, asking yourself, what is my definition of success, and focusing on what is making me effective, and not focusing on efficiency the whole time. You know, making time for yourself. And that is a great, what is the word? Like a great transition into our last point, which is reflecting and resting. To be honest, reflection and resting, I think, is the most underrated secret to success. We don't really speak enough about it, and it goes with the whole notion of society saying that you got to push, you got to push. What are you doing? What happened to the other hours of the day? Even though, how is it that some people are working less hours in the day, but some people are working 8 hours, but the person who works less hours is getting more done than the person who works a full 8-hour day? That's because they're working smarter. They've taken the time out to go and assess their schedule and break it down, seeing where those golden hours are happening, right? And so this moves it on to this section: control, alt, reflect, rest. So one of the processes in my personalized coaching program, one of the phases is actually called control, alt, reflect. So I just added in the rest there to make it pretty cool. And I want you to stop feeling guilty to take time out to rest your body and mind. Like I said, it's one of the most underrated, you know, secrets to success. So let's start it off with reflection, you know, reflecting at the end of the day. And if you have your workbook out right now, these are some of the questions that I've also put in there. And by the way, that workbook, you can actually fill it out. You can actually type in it. I made the little blocks fillable, which is pretty cool. So ask yourself at the end of every single day, what did I do well today? What can I improve upon? What is it that I can refine and adjust to do better tomorrow? Remember, don't be hard on yourself. That's so important. And it's funny is that I was speaking to a client the other day about this. And, you know, she was saying that she feels like she made a plan and her plan just didn't go the way she wanted it to. I said, yo, it's not a train smash. There's going to be some times where we're going to have to readjust the routes, which brings it onto the whole GPS. You have to adjust that roadmap. And I saw a webinar by Sandra Chuma, and she spoke about GPS standing for Goal Progress System. I thought that was amazing. You see, life is unpredictable, and there will be times where you're going to have to adjust that roadmap. And 2020, I would say, is the definition of an unpredictable year. This is like the symbolism of what life looks like, unpredictable. It really is. So you're going to have to change that. And you know, when you're heading in a certain direction and you make a wrong turn, don't worry. Siri is going to reroute you. I mean, have you ever taken a wrong turn? You put your GPS on a Google Maps, Waze, and then you take a wrong turn. You're like, oh shoot, oh no. Now what's going to happen? Siri's like, she doesn't say, oh, you're a bad person, Amy. Why did you take that wrong turn? No. She's like simply rerouting you, and she reroutes you. So you just should see that you're tracking progress as just feedback, data being feedback to you. It's not, you should not judge that data that's happening. It's just information, if you look at it in that way. Did you know that if you keep track of your goals and your progress on a consistent basis, your likelihood of achieving your goals actually goes up quite significantly? So remember that. I thought that was brilliant. It's just your GPS is just tracking it, just tracking those goals. And
In
so,
addition to discipline.
what's that? The discipline.
In addition to discipline.
Yes, yes,
Your GPS plus D.
yes. Oh my gosh, we're going to add that GPS plus D. Look, we're even going into algebra, man. Like, you see, there was a use for algebra at the end of the day, I guess. And
Don't ever mock math. That is my forte.
wow, I'm so bad at it, Amy. I'm so sorry. I just struggled at it in school. Oh,
My best friend.
I really did. So this last part here, and I know Peace, I'm gonna bring you in on this too, you know, because I'm pretty sure you have some golden nuggets of wisdom, like chicken nuggets, that you're gonna share right here. So I want to speak about a pick me up file and resting. So I heard about this in another speech that I watched, but I decided to call it a pick me up file. And on my phone, I actually have something called an appreciation folder. So if, say, Sandhya sends me a really nice voice note, well, not voice note, like I don't think I can save it in that folder. It's not the right. But if she sends me a really nice message, or if Nash sends me a really nice message, or I've accomplished something, I write it down or I screenshot it and I save it into my appreciation folder. And every time I'm feeling down, I look at my pick me up file or my appreciation folder. So I open it up and I'm like, wow, I'm actually not doing so shabby. Like I'm actually doing great. And that picks you up. And you always have to remember to always look back to see how far you've actually come and write it down. It's not real until you write it down. And that moves me on to my next thing, which is scheduling time to have fun. It's like when we were kids, we absolutely enjoyed playing and everything. And now it's kind of looked down upon if you're having fun, if you're scheduling time to play. And that goes along with what Sandhya said earlier, that we live in a society that we have to consistently be a person that has to push and push and push and hustle and hustle. What are you doing? Why are you taking a break? You're lazy. No, you gotta schedule time to have fun, to have the rest. And remember, just like how you schedule in your work, it is not real until you schedule it. So schedule in that meditation. And, you know, Peace, what is it that you like to do for fun?
Oh man, so people are gonna laugh at me. So as I was mentioning a bit earlier, so I enjoy watching cartoons, Mordecai and Rigby, Dragon Ball Z, Yu-Gi-Oh. Is so the kind of work and that I do is it requires a lot of kind of thinking and brain work and all those kind of things. And sometimes for me, it's just nice to kind of just switch off to the world and just be in this cartoon world, this world that's just not real, that I'm just living. Just enjoy myself. I also do a bit of exercising, which is quite important. I love my exercising. And something that I found that was quite interesting for me is, so this whole lockdown has been very tough on everyone. And, I was going through a bit of emotional kind of breakdown and so forth. And this is the week before my birthday, before turning 30. And I just woke up and I just felt angry with myself. I just didn't know what to do. I don't know what was happening with me. And I think, with the whole lockdown thing was kind of impacting me. And I said to myself, you know what? I haven't taken the time to actually take care of my body. I started doing suspension yoga. And man, I feel so liberated. And the reason being with that suspension yoga, what it does is it challenges me physically, and mentally as well. So it's so difficult, right? But at the same time, it's not like you're trying to perfect every move. Each time I go to the class, I become more confident at trying out something new. And that's what it's done for me. So each time I go into something new now, I'm not having this thing of, oh, I might fail. I'm going into it, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to learn. But I have the confidence to actually do it. And I really enjoy it. So yeah, it's been about 3 months now doing the suspension. I'm really enjoying it.
Amazing, Peace. Oh my gosh. You know what? When you first told me that you do suspension yoga, I was like, what? Even Amy was like, oh my gosh. Like, what? Okay. Like, release that inner Beyonce. Okay, I don't know if she does it, but that was a random thought.
I box. I get like I box. Yeah.
Okay.
Boxing. Yeah, I used to do that as well. I used to do boxing as well. It's very
Listen, yoga, do you know that yoga is more intense than boxing?
yeah.
But anyway, let's not divert.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing. And I want to see pictures, Peace. Like if you can send us pictures of you doing this suspension yoga, that would go straight into my pick me up file. Yes.
Send me the video of me doing the flips and whatnot.
Yes. Yes. So I see that, we're coming to like
Sorry,
the
Yumi.
end now. Yes. Yes.
Could I just add something to that pick me up folder? So
Sure.
I am very grateful about the fact that I lead a team of, so in my professional capacity, I lead a team of 35 people. And then in my personal capacity, that I'm a mentor to like young girls in like high school and all of that stuff. So I think the one thing about the pick me up thing is it's not even just trying to make yourself feel better. It's actually seeing them actually take in what you have gifted them with and the type of person that I am. So one of my ECDs said to me the other day, he was asking me about my tattoo, this one here. It's a new one, like, oh, okay, cool. What does it say? So I said, this is the story. It's actually the name of my grandmother.
Wow.
And he was like, but why? Why did you get it? And then I was like, well, I'm also named after her. He was like, but are you like her? And I was like, yeah. Then he was like, but what was she like? I'm like, fierce and kind. And then he looked at me, he stood up and he started clapping. He was like, fierce and kind. I work in the corporate realm. The word kind is it's far. You don't ever see it. Don't ever see, that word never comes.
Yeah.
Kind never comes. So I like the fact that, I'm able to still be myself and get little nuggets to put in my pick me up file where I'm just like, you know what? My team actually benefited from me in this way. This one was put in a space that they would have never been put in because I'm just about that. And I like that. I really, really like that. And for me, I mean, this might be a bit unsolicited, but I think everyone needs to keep some sort of pick me up folder, pick me up file, because that then goes back into the motivation. It goes back into the discipline because the motivation is what you think in your head and the discipline is what you do every single day. So if you can get that motivation and that goodness in yourself and in your being, in your mind, then you're able to get into the discipline. Once you get into the discipline, then you can actually impart knowledge on other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wow, absolutely, 100%. I completely agree with you. And it was so funny what you said with like kind. Oh no, that's so far-fetched. I thought that was so funny.
Corporate does not know kind, no.
No, no.
I know that very well. I mean, I spent 7 years as well in the corporate world, and I decided to bounce. It was just, yeah, it was an interesting journey for me.
Yeah, you're like, bye, Felicia. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for this wonderful, wonderful session. So I know that we're done now with the content that we're going through. I know that we're over time, but if you would like to ask any questions to Piso you could totally do that. What I'm going to also do right now is if you're on the call right now and you'd like to I published a free ebook a few months ago, and it's about, how 11 bulletproof ways to create invincible success. So I'm going to leave the link over here in the chat. So I don't know why is it not pasting. Very strange that it's not pasting, but I'll figure it out. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll email it to you. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now. Yes.